My name is Bob DeBiase, and I want to welcome you to the Space Frontier Foundation first forum on cheap access to space. First of all, a little bit of definition of terms. When we talk about cheap access to space, well, what do we mean? If you look at some of the things we've seen in the media, we've seen things like 40–50% reductions in launch costs. And, well, these things are okay. But for the purpose of this forum, that's not what we're talking about. For the purpose of this forum, when we talk about cheap access to space, we're talking about orders of magnitude reduction in launch costs. We're talking about a significant reduction that is enough to open up new markets and to open up new applications in space. Basically, we're talking about something that is revolutionary and can open up the space frontier. Why this forum? Well, this forum is designed to raise the issue of cheap access to space. And in this particular forum, we're going to focus on bringing single-stage to orbit technology to the marketplace. Not that this is the only way of doing cheap access to space, but as you're all pretty well aware, the Delta Clipper program is in test. So it's pertinent to talk about this type of technology now. A disclaimer at this point: the Space Frontier Foundation doesn't endorse any particular technology, except those that work.
Take us there.
And that's my disclaimer. Well, why don't we have cheap access now? Is it a technical issue? Is it a market issue? Is it a financial issue? Political issue? Attitude issue? Well, maybe it's a combination of all of these things. And so basically our forum today is going to look at this issue from a number of different points of view. It's going to be multidisciplinary. We're going to be talking about some technical things, and we're going to be talking about a lot of things that are not technical. As I mentioned before, this is a revolutionary subject, and we have a revolutionary set of speakers this morning. And I'll just name them. Our four speakers are Rick Tumlinson, Dr. Lichtenberg, Tom Rogers, Dr. Peter DeLandis. And then we're going to, after our four speakers, we're going to have a panel discussion where Dr. Galvitz is also going to join us. During our talks, I would like to ask that you hold all questions. And if you have a question, please write it down. We are going to have a panel discussion at the end of our speakers, and at this point you can ask your questions. So let's get right on with our discussion, and to lead off is going to be Rick Tumlinson. And Rick is the president of the Space Frontier Foundation. He's also president of Morningstar Media. He's also a space consultant to the Sci-Fi Channel. And among other things, he founded the New York City L5, which later became the Space Frontier Society. He also co-authored Radio Shack's interactive disc, Americans in Space. And he's a board member of Lunacorp, an entrepreneurial firm which is working on commercially funded lunar missions. And I understand Tom Rogers is also on the board of Unicorn. Well, anyway, enough of me. Let's give our attention now to Rick Tumlinson.
Modern technology. If you'll bear with me a moment here, this morning, due to a lack of right specific impulse T and other things, wiped out my speech and tried to reassemble it very quickly. So I've created sort of a teleprompter for myself here. Today we have a situation in space where there's a lot of wringing of hands and sort of self-righteous anger at the way Americans seem to be letting their their space program died. There seems to be a belief that space has been sold incorrectly to the public. That if only they would understand that the great and glorious future awaits us on the frontier, that support would flow forth like water. This assumption is absolutely false. The American public does support the opening of space. Look around. A perusal of American popular culture reveals that space imagery is everywhere. Entertainment that is based on popular or possible futures in space is incredibly popular. Several of the top movies, television series, etc. of all time have been based on space themes. In fact, as a recent example of one easily overlooked by our rather cloistered crowd, of that enthusiasm, that one of the top rising songs on the alternative college radio and MTV music charts right now is called Silent Satellite. This song basically condemns the fact that we ended our space journey, or our human journeys into space after Apollo, wonders what happened, and demands that it be reinvigorated, that we get back on it. The song is sung by a young black woman. The support is out there. The enemies, the boogeymen that we're looking for aren't. So how do we have this problem? Well, we've been going in one direction while the public has been going in another. Since the space program began, there have been a lot of people out there that have said they would like to start industries in space. Remember during the 70s when the space shuttle was going to be flying 50 times a year, all kinds of enterprises were coming out of the woodwork, some flaky, some not so flaky. I would say as a general rule, most space projects have a sort of flaky tune to them at first, and then over time, some of them become real. There were all kinds of people wanting to do things. Remember after Challenger surveys were done, people wanted to go. The American people want to go to space. And that's exactly where our problem lies. There's no mystery where our space efforts are in trouble. The current national space agenda totally ignores the needs and desires of the American people, the American taxpayers fund it. The public does support the opening of space, but our current national space program is not doing that. It is not now, nor has it ever been, the policy of the United States government to open the space frontier to human settlement and development. I want to say that again. It is not now, nor has it ever been the policy of the United States government to open the space frontier to human settlement and development. Folks, that's our delusion. We made that up. We have a space program in the United States right now that basically treats the frontier as a national government laboratory with restricted access. Now this came about because the original Apollo program was basically a military-style program. And we have stayed with that sort of limited view of what space is. So when we go out as groups to get people interested in space, bring them in, and get them to support the space program, what we're doing basically is, well, I'll tell you what, let me give you a mind picture, a little image to keep in your mind. The National Space Program we have, and I'm talking almost exclusively about the human side of things, is a linear progression, a single road. Way over here, whether it's real or not, is Oz, space settlement, whatever. Yellow brick road, going to Oz. We, the supporters, go out into the public, get them all lined up behind supporting the space program, bring them over, and put them on this large magic bus, which we call our space program. The driver, big thing on his forehead that says, "Trust me," welcomes everybody aboard. And of course, the driver, we don't realize, won a major Grand Prix several years ago and has actually drawn his own map to get where he's going. Ours isn't that relevant. Everybody climbs on the bus, the driver takes off and goes off a cliff on his new route. We pull it back up, which is very hard to do because it's a solid gold bus. Get it on the track. After a period of time, time heals all wounds. We go back out again, like travel agents, recruit the goodwill of the American public, get them back on the magic bus, off they go, and boom, right off the cliff again. A linear, single-track space program has that potential. It can be driven off the track. Okay, keep that picture in mind. I'm going to come back to that in a moment with an alternative. A question that I have right now is, what is it that Americans really want in space? I'll give you three possible answers. Real economic benefits that are tangible and understandable, see, touch, feel, real things. A new frontier to which maybe they or their children, or at least some promise that their children can travel there to do new things, to try new things, maybe to escape old things, and a home for their dreams of a better future. A context, a new context, a post-Cold War context within which the American people can rationalize this nation's existence so that we don't drift. We've been very lucky as a nation to go from one major, all-encompassing societal challenge to another. Opening the West, the series of world wars, the Cold War. National purpose was set up that way. That's how we have designed our cultures to deal with these things. We need a replacement for that. Americans want to be involved in their space program. They don't want to watch it on TV. Americans as a people, we grow pretty weary very quickly of passive activities. We are a very active, very go for it, go do it kind of culture. Just look at all the new kinds of sports that are popping up everywhere. So we've got this little mismatch here because we have a people and a democracy that have been taught all their lives, you can do it, go out and do it. Trying to support, trying to work with, trying to realize those dreams, those egalitarian American dreams, through a linear, socialist-style space program. It's a very, very, very big mismatch. And over time, the disconnect, as the eye candy, the visuals, etc., have gotten old and actually been replaced probably by better special effects coming out of Hollywood, there's been more and more of a disconnect between the American people and their aspirations and what they've been led to believe, led to see, and told they want. So what we have to do is get rid of the linear one-track space program. We can't have one bus company anymore, one truck company, one department of exploration. We need a whole plethora of them. We need a myriad of different ways and different approaches. During periods of nationalistic fervor, during periods of competition, during periods of coming together against outside aggressors and against natural aggressors or whatever, a lot of the times our space program can plan on the support of the public. But when those rationales are gone, when the boogeyman isn't there, the public support can vanish. And again, that magic bus, that national space program, that linear national space program that we have, hasn't really realized, or the realization hasn't sunk into that our entire movement into space right now is dependent on the national whim of the taxpayers. The national whim that can change instantly. Healthcare, deficit, military spending. That's what we're depending on. No wonder a few of us have ulcers. And when times get tough, that support can vanish, and it has now. So what we have to do is, as I said before, get away from that linear single track. So what I propose as a basis for the discussions which will follow, I'm not going to be talking about technology here, I'm just giving you kind of a shotgun context within which to place the discussions you're going to hear. What we need is a conceptual framework that fits our American psyche, and within which all of the activities of our space program can be judged. I'll put it this way. If space is a frontier, then the national government should treat it as one. In a democracy, governments do not open frontiers. People do. Therefore, our space agency must be designed to help the American people open the frontier. It must not attempt to open the frontier for us. It will surely fail. Simple and concise. Align the reality with the visions, the aspirations of the American people as expressed in their history, traditions, and belief systems. Eliminate the rhetoric, eliminate the fancy pictures, eliminate all this stuff that doesn't have anything to do with the reality of where we're going, Let's get down to making it happen. So, how do we get there? Well, those are the kind of things we're going to be discussing today. And again, it is the American people themselves and a glorious tradition of chaos that we have. The exact tradition that scares governmental entities to death. Because, gosh, how do you control these crazy people? You know, somebody's going to build a hotel, and they're going to have sex in that hotel. It could happen. It could happen. Okay, I mean, things like that. This does not fit into a government program, folks. It is not. It should not be designed to. We are a nation of people, of individuals. So, the way we do that is, as my friend Peter here said last night, when the rules don't work, we change the rules. Just completely change the rules. And one of the rules that we've got to change is the rule about access to space. We have to create new rules. We have to create new ways of breaking the rules. And I'll tell you this, one thing right now is absolutely certain. Without cheap, reliable, and assured access to space, there is no frontier. I'm going to repeat that one again, too. Without cheap, reliable, and assured access to space, there is no frontier. Try and build a business on expensive, unreliable, and unassured transportation. That's why we have so many dead bodies in the space entrepreneurial field. So, let's look at our model for the space frontier. You've seen the linear single bus off the space settlement, Oz, whatever. Our model is, let's see, what was the movie? Far and Away. The scene, Oklahoma border. All those wagons lined up. Except substitute for wagons, a myriad of spacecraft. Okay? The equivalent, let's say, since we're using a car analogy, motorcycles, bicycles, tricycles, cars, airplanes, boats. All of them, ready to go. What happens if one of them goes off the track? Doesn't matter, the others keep going. I firmly believe that unless the space frontier is open within the next 20 years or so, and the numbers are flexible, that we will probably go another 100 years before it'll happen, because we have so many problems on this planet right now that we have to deal with. And I don't know how many of you have ever tried to raise funds yourselves or things like that, but there's an interesting phenomenon that occurs, like when you go to a corporation and they may have like $1 billion in the coffers, but they're laying off some people and things like that, so they feel they're poor. It's a psychological thing, it's not necessarily a real thing. But if they feel they're poor, you can't get money from them. You know? And that's the way our culture is going to be, I think, in a few years, as we start really trying to deal with these problems and face them. Because it is coming very seriously. The folks who, at the Club of Rome, the limits to growth people, are right in that respect. The one part that they're wrong on is the limit part, because they haven't looked at space. So, one way that we in the foundation have decided to look at these things and try to make sense of all these possibilities, all these projects, whether governmental or private, and fit them into some context of our own so that we can judge whether we support them or not, with the goal of space settlement being out there, is what we call the Frontier Enabling Test. And I invite you to try this. This test can be applied to anything, as I said. Frontier enabling is defined as a technology or policy that has as its effect the acceleration or creation of low-cost access to the space frontier for private citizens or companies, and/or enables or accelerates the rate at which wealth can be generated in space. In other words, does the project or policy provide a return on the long-term national investment if we define return to be the economically sustainable human habitation of space? That's our litmus test. Any of the projects that are out there right now you can apply to. We believe so firmly in this in the foundation that we printed in every copy of our newsletter on the back page so that we all can agree on this thing. It saves a lot of internal divisions because you can just go apply the test to it. Okay? Space station. Apply the test to that. Does it get you there faster? Does it get you there cheaper? Does it enable private industry to get there? Does it create more access? I'll let you answer that. Federal moon missions. Do they answer those questions? Private moon missions, different thing. DCX, single stage to orbit. Does it enable you to get there cheaper, faster, better? How did I say? Does it? I mean, you have to look at these things. The space shuttle. wondrously complex machine. Okay, well. So, try that test. The things you hear today, try that test on it. See if it works. And then go out and act on these things. If they do work, support them. If they don't work, don't support them. Don't be fooled by pretty pictures. Don't be fooled by Oz. Okay? You know, and don't be fooled by the magic bus. What we want to do is enable you to go and do it. And when you get out there and do it, the future is going to be glorious. It's going to be an exciting, wonderful thing. And at first, it's going to be chaotic as all hell. But that's America. That's what we do. That's what we are. And that's why we have to have cheap access to space. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick, for setting the tone for our coming discussion.